most not only don't know the truth, but the masses will never know the truth. They will only know the most popular answer, which is rarely the correct one. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Yes, my recent videos have seemingly cost me subscribers, which is fine. If I were just worried about sub numbers and views, I'd strictly do videos on cats chasing laser pointers on walls or stupid human tricks. I know my topics are nowhere close to being that popular, sadly, because most don't believe that the end will ever come. So, alas, Father Yahuah just isn't that popular, even in church. They don't even use his real name or his son's real name, just like I had explained in my confession video. So Lucifer's plan has always been to create enough distraction around us where we don't even think about Father very often, if at all. At least, not until we are in a life-threatening situation. Then, oddly enough, he's number one on our speed dial. So my drop in subs, it's not a surprise, because I know that most not only don't know the truth, but the masses will never know the truth. They will only know the most popular answer, which is rarely the correct one. It's a monkey see, monkey do mentality. It's human nature to not want to stand out from the crowd. So most will join in, even if they believe what's being done and said is wrong. They feel, hey, this many people can't be wrong, right? And even if they are, I'd still prefer to be wrong with most everyone else. The repercussions can't be that bad, right? After all, everyone can't be convicted. That makes them instinctively second-guess themselves, effectively abandoning what they know to be true, even if that involves going against every fiber of their being. Which is how a lot of people will end up worshiping Lucifer during the tribulation, because this time around, as I'd said before, it would be more along the lines of 2/3 that will fall away from Father than the third during the angelic civilization, meaning only 1/3-ish will remain faithful to Father Yahuah and die as martyrs for him during the Great Tribulation. What, you don't believe me? Ever hear of looting? Tell me, why does that ever take place? Is it because a mere 5 people decided that whatever given incident is unexpectedly taking place would be a great distraction to make their impromptu secluded heist? Or is it because those people making the decision to join in believe they are stronger in numbers? That everyone cannot be caught, so I'm going to get mine while I can. They know what they're doing is wrong, right? Otherwise, why didn't they break into that same store 2 days prior with a couple of their buddies? Even though this example isn't portraying the masses acting that way, I think you get my point in that people are more likely to participate in something if a crowd is already doing it. Man, if they would just use that same energy and have that mentality to stand up to our corrupt government. Anyhow, Lucifer knows this about mankind, so he's using it every chance he gets. Because, as I've said before, he cannot make Father's mankind do anything. He can only give you choices, which invariably involves what is widely known as temptation. It's part of the agreement he had made with Father during the immediate judgment that took place in the midst of the Great Rebellion. He wouldn't be locked up like a lot of his fallen had been and swept away as prisoners on the planet Rahab, which is now known as Nibiru or Planet X, and has a 3,600-year orbit and is due to return any day, because Father had knocked it out of the solar system. At least he's not locked up yet. Instead, he would be Father's puppet to be used for his ultimate purpose. Which leads me to the topic of this video. Now, if you've been following along, you know I briefly touched on this at the very end of my How Religion Keeps Us Separated from Father Yahuah video. So, whatever happened to fallen angels? We know what happened and ultimately became a Lucifer, if you'd even believe he had ever existed. But what about those millions, perhaps billions, who had fallen with him? Now, I firmly believe that the devil's single best trick was convincing the masses he did not exist. Because not only does an awakening make you see that, if you hadn't before, but it magnifies it 1,000%. You'll just never realize before just how much he's getting all around the world and why they are willing to help him try to succeed at his master plan, or so he thinks. That's what blew me away. Sure, I knew there were devil worshippers in the world, but I never dreamt that that would involve Congress, Hollywood, mainstream media, royalty, just to name a few, which all happen to be at the top of the financial pyramid. How interesting. I'm rolling my eyes right about now, even if you can't see them. Anyway, where did those who had fallen go? They're spiritual beings, so it's not like they ever die in the sense we know concerning body death. So where did they go? Were they simply erased with the true history of mankind? The fallen that were allowed to roam free with Lucifer, which is way more than the church will ever let on, didn't go anywhere. They are everywhere, as in reincarnated malevolent beings, generation after generation after generation. And that includes the Watchers, who were supposed to keep an eye out for this planet, but instead created a pact to come down and treat females any way they wanted, resulting in the creation of Nephilim, a la giants. So why would the church merely gloss over the Great Rebellion, which, according to Sherry Shriner, actually lasted 1,000 Earth years? And why haven't they talked about where the fallen had gone? Is it because that would give too much away and the Great Awakening would happen way too soon? I don't know about you, but my early memories of church back when I was a Protestant only involves a brief mention of Lucifer falling with some angels. And then, poof, they're gone. Never mentioned again. Well, that's pretty convenient because they had never gone anywhere. It's called soul scalping, and they take over the bodies of fools who are dumb enough to sign on the dotted line and believe that the father of lies will hold up his end of the deal in order for his fallen to have physical bodies. What I really can't understand, though, is the people who are approached to sign on the dotted line for fame and fortune, they know that evil really exists. So why don't they realize that means Father Yahuah exists too? I mean, you can't have good without evil and vice versa. Otherwise, you wouldn't know one from the other. I mean, it's like if it were sunny and 85 degrees every day of the year. Now, some say that would describe Hawaii, but Hawaii is a totally different eye-opening subject for another video. Trust me. Anyhow, you wouldn't know what bad weather was because you had never compared it to anything. Even if someone was an atheist or agnostic when they were approached to sign, they should realize what is the truth now. That should have been the light bulb turning on in their head to get them headed down the correct path, like those near-death experiences that scare people straight. Again, another eye-opening topic for another video. At any rate, that's where the reptilian cabal comes from. Now keep in mind, as I mentioned in previous videos, with Cain being the first hybrid being on the planet, as in half mankind through Eve, half reptilian serpent seed through his father, his real father, Lucifer, not all reptilians are the fallen. A lot come from different lineages, like Cain and Esau's, primarily. Now before I go on, I want to point something out that recently came to mind. And when that happens, I cannot help but think Father put it there for me to share. So here it is. Okay, remember in how religion keeps us separated from Father Yahuah, I had explained that Lucifer and Yahushua were brothers in the angelic spiritual realm of heaven, only as Haliel and Yasha. Okay, so consider this. The younger brother is good, and the older brother turns bad, right? Well, look at Cain and Abel, fraternal twins from different fathers, regardless if the church will admit it or not, the older being bad and the younger good. Well, look at Isaac and Rebekah's fraternal twins, Esau and Jacob. The older, Esau, turning bad, becoming the Edomites, marrying into the forbidden Canaanites, the cursed tribe of Canaan, son of Ham, who defiled his father Noah by sleeping with his mother. The younger Jacob, becoming Israel, father's people. And Father leads them to the promised land, which was first Canaan, before his people overran them during King David's reign as king and made it Israel. Now, come full circle, and King Yasha in the spiritual realm becomes Yahuah ben David in the flesh and ultimately provides everyone the opportunity of salvation by making the perfect sacrifice and being risen, conquering death. I mean, you can't make this stuff up, people. This is just one example of how Father always knows the end from the beginning. In any event, the fallen, like Lucifer, were cursed with immediate, albeit partial judgment to look like reptilians, the bottom of the animal kingdom. And now they have to go find host bodies to hide their true identity ever since, or at least for the last 1500 years or so, which doesn't always work, and is known to the woke folk as shape-shifting, which has become more and more noticeable as the frequency on this planet continues to change. Now, the word frequency may sound New Age to some of you, but just know, Lucifer's New Age movement has taken truth and twisted it to fit their agenda because all they can do is mimic Father Yahuah and hope enough people remain asleep to keep the rouge going. So the minority of woke folk are always looked at as the crazy ones who need to have their heads examined. Mind control is a very powerful tool that's been used for thousands of years. And if you don't believe me, you're under mind control, because that's exactly what they want you to think. The woke folk are nuts. Who would ever seriously believe that there are reptiles who shapeshift into people, or that child trafficking happens all over the world, whether they ship kids in and out of this country and others so the elite can have sex toys and ultimate sacrifices to Satan to create more loosh? That's crazy talk, says the masses in unison. So yes, mind control is still working on the majority, as designed. Well, 10 years ago, even though Sherry Shriner was basically screaming from the mountaintops concerning all the pedophiles in Hollywood and Congress primarily, nobody would have believed it. Yet here we are, a lot more people are aware of this truth. Not so crazy now, is it? Once you're awakened to who's really allowed to run this planet with the help of his minions, then you will see where the fallen angels had gone. Nowhere. Except to their underground cities, at least until they get their host bodies to roam around in, thanks in large part to all of our illegal tax dollars footing the bill for those underground cities. Lucifer's whole plan is to steal souls from Father. Now, one of the biggest lies going today is that Lucifer, Satan, Devil, Sanat Kamara, Baphomet, whatever his name is that you know him by, the biggest lie is that he runs hell. Believing Lucifer runs hell is like people believing, say, that the President of the United States is the most powerful person in the world, or even runs America for that matter. Perception is everything. In both instances, somebody else is holding the reins. You only believe what you've been told is true. Father Yahuah runs both heaven and hell. Somebody just decided to make Lucifer the poster child for it. Now, as I'd explained in my Renounce Satan video, you cannot actually sell your soul to Satan because he doesn't decide your fate. He just likes for people to believe he does when his minions tell them to sign on the dotted line so they can have fame and fortune and they will rule hell together when it's all said and done. He can, however, lie, as the father of lies does, and instead of holding up his end of the supposed deal, kill you, clone you with a, you guessed it, fallen angel running the show and taking over your brand to continue making millions for him. And the masses aren't the wiser for it, nor is most of the quote-unquote awake, because they are only awakened from this side of the veil, unless you've been following Sherry's ministry, which is what I'm trying to reiterate now, and I have been for umpteen videos before this. In any event, this is what most don't realize or understand. Death is a curse, meaning you are no longer connected to Father Yahuah, which is what his son's perfect sacrifice was all about, allowing us to stay connected after body death, which wasn't a possibility before. Remember when Yahushua had gone down to Sheol for 3 days before being risen? He'd gone down to preach to all the disconnected souls, giving them the opportunity of the same salvation he'd given to the living, or at least the ones that were redeemable, since they hadn't had it before. So death was a curse to them. If you read the first book of Enoch, chapter 22, it'll give you more clarification on this. When you have the Holy Spirit inside you and you die, quote unquote die, you stay connected to Father Yahuah. So it's not really death because your soul, your spirit goes back to him. Unlike if you're headed southbound and down, so to speak, you are then separated or disconnected from him. Now you've probably heard the Romans 6:23 passage, Paul's oddly enough, where the wages of sin is death. Like I said before, he managed to sprinkle in some truths here and there. At any rate, the wages of sin was created in the garden when Adam and Eve brought death into the world by defying Father Yahuah. In Genesis 3:5, that's where the con started. Lucifer, wanting to destroy the new creation of fathers, which had essentially replaced him in his fallen, loathed mankind. And he was bound and determined to do everything within the lines of the agreement he made with Father to destroy it. So he told Eve that God doesn't want them to know that they too can be gods, knowing good and evil. And that's why God doesn't want them, quote unquote, partaking from the tree of knowledge, which is an allegory for Lucifer seducing Eve, just as the tree of life is a metaphor for Yahushua ben David. Now they could have lived forever, never bringing death into the world, had they been obedient. But their sin, even though it wasn't called that back then, brought inevitable death. And they became fallen bodies, as everyone that subsequently came after them did. Now think about it. What does the Bible say about fruit? You will know someone by the fruit they bear. The tree of knowledge wasn't a tree. The Bible used trees to describe people. And what does a tree bear in the general sense as well as the metaphorical? Fruit. That's the bad fruit Eve had partaken in, as in evil. Anyway, that's just one more example of their corrupting the Bible and making it so convoluted that most just give up reading it, if ever even attempting to, and just rely on what their minister preaches on Sun God Day. And if you've been following Jonathan Kleck, he's going around trying to tell people that the whole Elohim, Genesis 1:27, made man in the image of them, was actually Lucifer and his fallen. That's blasphemy. We are in the fallen state because of death coming into play after Adam and Eve had disobeyed Father. How he can say that that was not Father's creation when it was actually the angelic Adam and the angelic Lilith, who's completely kept in the dark in churches and is considered a myth in Hebrew, is beyond me. Anyway, now I would compare reading the Bible to learning a second language because of how convoluted they've made it. Now what I mean by that is, at first it's completely foreign to you. You just don't get it, which makes you lose interest. Their evil plan for the creation editor's version of the convoluted KJV in 1611. And you just want someone else to translate the language for you. Enter the preacher. So you don't have to deal with it firsthand. But then it just suddenly starts to click, as in an awakening. And it's as though you're now reading your primary language and it makes much more sense. But you also start to realize that there are specific words, false doctrines, that don't translate between languages, multiple gospels. So holes, gaps start to materialize where you have to do your own research, as in build a relationship with Father Yahuah, seeking truth only from him and never man or man-made religion again, to fill the gaps, to ensure you're not mistranslating, falling for the lies, something to the point you start going down the wrong path, road to destruction. The entire point of making the Bible difficult to read, as in Shakespearean jargon, which oddly enough or not, is who actually had translated it for King James. Well, that was Sir Francis Bacon's pseudonym or pen name anyway. It's all about destroying Father's mankind creation, and the fallen are only too happy to help Lucifer in doing just that. So they covertly run Hollywood, Congress, sports, anything that has power and authority and distraction in this world, allowing theirs to be at the top of the biggest multi-level marketing pyramid scheme the world has never known. Because most of the world doesn't even know what's happening around them. The rich get richer, the poor, poorer. It's like the world is one ginormous pinata, and Lucifer only has so much time to destroy it, except he's not allowed to smash it himself. He has to convince others to do it for him, primarily through temptation of delusion of grandeur. And if you want to take a swing, because you've been told you get to keep whatever falls out of it during your turn, it's going to cost you more than you've ever bargained. That's where the fallen had gone, blending into society, fathers mankind, to wreak havoc before their ultimate judgment. Now their plan is to reverse Father's judgment at the Tower of Babel, where he had separated races and religions. New World Order has been in the works for eons, with the single goal of creating a one-world government and a one-world religion. Are you starting to get the picture now? Now in this last generation of mankind, everyone born within the last 70 years since the false rebirth of Israel, as I've mentioned several times in previous videos, was brought here to either serve Father Yahuah or Lucifer. Now some have lost their ways and gone to the dark side, primarily through temptation, like in Hollywood for instance. As mentioned in the book of Enoch, Father Yahuah can name all the stars in the sky because he had created them. And that's the second book of Enoch, chapter 43. Well, Lucifer can name all his stars too. He'd created them, so to speak. A lot of them reside in Hollywood. But it's not limited to Hollywood. Those are just the ones that are emphasized and endorsed as such the most. Now don't think for a second that the term movie star was created at random. Because again, once you're awake, you realize, all together now, coincidences do not exist. Once again, Lucifer is mimicking Father's creation because the created cannot create, only copy. Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking. Hey, now I've heard stars thanking God in their acceptance speech, so put that in your pipe and smoke it, pal. Sure, I've heard that too. But let me ask you this, have you ever heard one thank Father Yahuah or Yahushua for providing them with the opportunity of salvation? I sure haven't, and that's because they're not allowed to. Again, God, Lord, Christ, they're all just vague titles that anyone can associate to anyone without the masses knowing their true intent. They're not going to come out and just thank Lucifer without it seeming like a joke. That would make the ruse start to crumble. Even the fictitious name Jesus is fooling the masses, as I'd shown a previous clip several times, which I'll show again here, of Obama agreeing with the prop in the crowd who comes in on cue at the perfect time. Well, just watch it. You'll see what I'm talking about.
I want to thank
Christian God is the one and only true living God, the creator of heaven and the universe. Jesus Christ is God. Jesus Christ is God. Jesus Christ is the Son of God. Jesus Christ is the Son of God.
I agree.
You are an antichrist because you said Israel and the Lord.
First of all, I agree Jesus Christ is the Lord. I believe in that.
Now, you've all probably heard about Hollywood stars of today resembling people from way back in the past, right? Why do you think that is? Fallen angels didn't go anywhere. The masses just haven't been allowed to know that. So they've simply forgotten all about them, just like they have, for the most part, Father Yahuah and even Lucifer. And that's been Lucifer's plan all along. It's way more fun down here with a bunch of toys. Just sign your name right here and we'll get you going on a much better life. When a baby starts crying, what do you give to them to pacify them? A pacifier. Well, all these distractions in the world, including all major sports created by Freemasonry, is our pacifier, distraction, to ensure that the masses won't snap out of it and never realize their real purpose for being here now. It goes with the same reason we are told to get 8 hours of sleep every night. which just happens to match the number of hours in a workday, taking up exactly 2/3 of the entire day, not including round-trip commutes through the arduous rat race. It's also we don't have any free time to snap out of it. So some of us just mask the stress and the frustration of the week by consuming copious amounts of alcohol or even drugs in some cases, or affairs or hookers, whatever gets you through the week, which only opens doors to demons. See a pattern to the vicious cycle yet? And then, to top it all off, just because guilt may be getting to you by the end of the week for all the sins you've committed in order to just be able to cope, and you've been indoctrinated in believing that as long as you believe Jesus died for our sins, you're saved, you decide to make it all better by going to church on Sun God Day, not knowing the real purpose behind it is to keep you separated from Father by listening to false doctrines of Paul. I have to keep repeating it over and over to snap you out of the indoctrination we've all been led into, through no fault of our own. But once we're shown the truth, what we do with it is most certainly on our shoulders. Will this video help you snap out of your trance? Time will only tell, but we're running out of it, so you better decide soon. God bless.
At them. I mean, a lot, if you look at it, the 144,000, they're all little teachers. I don't have followers. I teach leaders. Every one of the people associated with me is a teacher. They're teachers. They're prophets. They're part of the 144,000. They're the top of the creme of the creme. That's what the Father said. I would teach his prophets. They're the only ones who understand me. They understand me. They connect to me. They don't know why, but they connect to me. And then they figure it out as they wake up, as they begin to learn more. And the Father opens their eyes. Only the Father could open your eyes and ears. And that's the problem with the majority of the churches out there today. Their ears are closed. Their eyes are half wide shut. They can't see. They can't hear the truth. They just mock you. That's the majority, and that's the ones going through the tribulation period. They always say, oh, there's going to be a huge rapture, and then all those who are saved after they're gone are the ones that are persecuted. I know, I grew up in the religion before the Lord took me out. I think we've all been there. He took us out. He said, teaching us the truth in all things because we're truth seekers. And we ask him for the truth. And so he gives it to us in bits and measures here and there. And over time, you finally wake up and realize how much truth you have. And it doesn't make you any better because everybody laughs at you and mocks you. They think you're crazy.